Well, here we are again. I've got a few more gray hairs, I feel like, after the last couple of weeks and that sort of thing. But we're doing fine. You know, things are humming along, even though it seems like a lot of things are shut down and that sort of thing. Those of you that are on an ag operation, farm or ranch, things probably haven't changed too much. You've done your social distancing all along and that sort of thing. Now that I live in town, it's not that easy. Although I did get a chance to spend a little time up at our place north of here just recently. And every gray hair that I have actually is earned by owning some investments, owning some real estate, and owning some homes and that sort of thing. So not that you have to listen to me on any of this that we've gone over so far or into the future, but um, I've had a dog in the race, got some skin in the game, all those kinds of things, and I do know that we're going to probably go through a few more of these things by the time you reach my age, if you're not there already, and we generally survive them. A lot of times you see a lot of opportunities at the front end, back end, and the middle of these certain things. So if you're able to take advantage of some of those things, we'll visit about that a little bit. And we're gonna start into a unit on debt this week, and it's a philosophy that you could say it's Dave Ramsey's philosophy on business debt. It's similar to his approach on the debt and with your personal finance and your ability to get out and stay out of debt. I'm going to come at this a little bit different with this message, and I hope that you do listen to this portion of it before we talk about the lesson that I have prepared for you. But debt is something that I have used in my lifetime. We currently have a small mortgage on a house. That's the only debt that we have. We have no credit cards that we use. I actually have one just in the safe and that sort of thing. I don't know why. I haven't needed to use it in the last 20 years, but it just we've got the discipline enough not to use it, and that sort of thing. I just want to tell you, as you go through times like this, it's perfect times for us to reflect on what has just happened. And typically in a class like this, even though we've just come through a lesson just before spring break that talked about getting out of debt and staying out of debt and the reasons for that, typically I ask a question, and I'm going to ask it of you too, and I wonder if the answers will be a little different. But 80% of the answers will typically be to a question like, how do you feel about debt in agriculture going forward? And the typical answers are that it's just overcapitalized and there's no way that you can not use it, and that sort of thing. And it's kind of a cultural thing, I believe, that the students that we've had, and this is going back 15 years that I've been teaching this particular class, that the culture we've been brought up in is that there's no other way to do that. And I will tell you that I've had some small holdings in the livestock ranching industry. I've done some small time farming and that sort of thing, and that's nothing compared to the big time operations that are out there. But we did run an operation, the guiding and outfitting operation. It was bringing in about $750,000 a year in gross revenues, and for compared to a lot of operations in Wyoming was substantial. I'm not saying that's huge by any means. I'm not trying to brag or anything like that, but we did that without financing one bit. I mean, we had a little period there where we did a little bit. I had a line of credit, and I finally went, what do I need this for? I could just finance myself. I could pay myself. I could implement this profit first. We didn't know it as profit first back then, but that author actually describes it a whole lot better than I can. That's why I use it in this class, is that we started paying ourselves first and putting money aside and using that same approach in our personal lives, where we bought our first property without financing it. We ran this, $750,000 company without financing any of it, and it was successful. And we gave ourselves a lot more opportunities as a result. And I want you to know that there's other ways to do things. Sometimes you have to ask the right questions. Sometimes you have to look at it from a different angle. Sometimes you have to realize that what has been done in the past is not the way to do it, even though everybody else is doing it that way. And you can paint yourself into a corner if you use debt. And I'm really not against debt, but I am against just wholeheartedly using it for everything, leveraging your company in every way you can. You better be awfully, awfully careful. The only people that really build sustainable wealth using debt have a whole bunch of dry powder, where if they get in trouble, they can pay off their debt. So sometimes, and they call it arbitrage, when you have some money that is invested at a certain rate, and it's higher than what you can actually borrow money for, then you can arbitrage those rates. And that's where, somebody that's pretty sophisticated, and I have used it several times, but very, 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 very carefully. And I've considered it even more than that, and decided against it, just because of the fact that, if things didn't go quite right, which they never go exactly how you think they will, outcomes are always a little bit different than what you expect them to be, then they can, companies go belly up because of that. And you can build a foundational company, ranch, farm, business, without some debt if you just consider some other alternatives. Maybe it's different ways of cash flowing the business. Short-term rentals, I'm kind of hot on that one, although right now I'd almost hate to be in the short-term rental business, although maybe I can find a long-term rental customer for a while we weather the storm. There's a lot of ways you can use that. You don't just get in something. The more alternatives you have, the better off you are in all of that. And if you pay for it without financing it, then it doesn't paint you into a corner, so that if you don't get the revenue stream in that you think you will, then it doesn't put you in an ultimate bind, which means that you have to sell the assets of the business and, go down that road of, maybe a lingering bankruptcy if you're just selling off assets over time, or the ultimate of where you just close the doors. So there's been many, and there will be in this near term. There's no doubt about it. You're going to see Wall Street, Fortune 500 companies go out of business because they're ultimately the corporate debt on their balance sheets has gotten too high. And I know maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the government will bail them out. Maybe that's going to work. And maybe you ought to rely on the government for everything. I'm kind of I go the other way. I'm more of a free marketeer. I'd rather have try to do things my own way, and with that means that I may have to go with less debt. What that really means is that you build slowly. You're a pragmatist. You're going against the herd, so it's going to take a little more time. But I will tell you this, that when we decided, and this has been almost 25 years ago, to go completely debt-free throughout, both personal and business-wise, the first 5 years were absolutely hell. We dug and we clawed, and we lived on almost nothing, and those sorts of things. But the result later on, to build a business that could actually cash flow over $750,000 a year was amazing, and the things that came from that. And as a result, being able to buy several properties and invest and that sort of thing has been really, really a lot of fun, in the meantime. And, I've gotten into stock investing, and right now I'm sitting on, at least some cash, and I'm looking forward to buying some sales, just like with the same kind of giddy mentality that I used to buy horses. When you've got cash and things are on sale, people hunt you down with their sale items. That's the amazing part about it. I remember, not needing any mules or horses, and people would come to me and say, would you just give me something? I'm getting tired of owning this mule. I'm getting tired of owning this horse. And some of them really absolutely excellent animals. We got to purchase at a bargain basement prices compared to what others were that were financing them and that sort of thing. But we were buying when other people were selling, and vice versa. And that's one of the things that some people learn. Took me a while to learn that. I will guarantee you it wasn't easy for me, but it is a lot more fun doing business that way than it is to be on the other end of the stick, where you just say, I need a horse, or I need a tractor, and be at the whims of the market when it comes right down to it. So anyway, I'm hoping, I'm just praying that maybe some of you have some insights. I don't know, not everybody will, and I don't blame you for your answers and possibilities of saying there's no way that debt can't be used in business. I would just say this to those of you that say that particular thing, is that just use, if you do happen to use debt, just absolutely research the tar out of what you're putting it into, and use it surgically. Okay, something happens to our brain, and this is one of the things that scared me when I first got into business and was broke, looking at different debt tools in order to get me out of, lift me up. Anyway, but there's something happens in the brain. It's called dopamine. And I realized this with myself. When we filed the papers to get some loans early on, is that all of a sudden it felt like a burden was lifted. And it was like euphoric. And you don't make the same kinds of decisions when you're loaded up with dopamine as you would otherwise. It's just like having a credit card with a high credit limit. People, across the board, this is 99 out of 100 people. I know you've heard me quote that statistic for a lot of other things, but 99 out of 100 people will spend more on all categories of their budget if they use a credit card. Okay? So, to me, that's a really good reason, if I'm a real budgeteer, to not use a credit card and not use debt. And if I'm applying for a line of credit, if I'm going to buy a piece of property with debt and all those kinds of things, generally what that means, I'm going to overpay for it. I'm not going to research it as well, and that sort of thing. That might not be you. Maybe you are the 1%. I just hope you are, if you actually go down that road, because most people do. Okay, and I want the best for you. So anyway, you don't have to tell me what I want. I want you to tell me what you think. Okay, for the quiz this week, and it's in a forum. It's in a forum go ahead and put your thoughts. I want it to be thoughtful. It should be a couple paragraphs long. It's going to count just like a quiz would. So have it organized. You might type it out on a Google Doc and then cut and paste it into the form after you post it, not before. You'll be able to see what the others have put down. I want you to comment on others' postings. So that's an important part of that. You don't have to argue, but give your thoughts on what their thoughts are. And that we don't get a chance to just kind of mull things over in a classroom type of environment or, a group setting or anything like that. So anyway, have fun with it. Don't get mean. None of you are. I know that. Thank God. Just a couple thoughts on a couple of things I know that I sent out. Just an update to you just a few days ago, or maybe you just saw it. But anyway, these are great times in a lot of ways. A slower paced life. I just hope people will pay less attention to their smartphones, as I am. Anyway, I'm reading the Bible more during these times. I look forward to doing that some more too. Just those things that count that we haven't been doing. Your family. It means everything, right? Well, if you were to look at what we all do in a typical day, you wouldn't realize that. You wouldn't be able to actually figure that out by how we act during the day, that they mean everything to us. So spend some time with your family. Hope you are. Get some exercise. If you're a townie like I am now, okay, get out and just walk. It's the greatest place. We live, most of us live in kind of rural communities, if not, out in the country. And get out and do some exercise that way. Have a little regiment that you get into, maybe some push-ups and some, different exercises you can do that is not at the gym. That's kind of a couple of things that we've started right at Christmas. My wife and I started working out. I don't know if you can tell or not, but I feel a lot better. Got lots more energy. I can go ahead and walk 4 or 5 miles and not really, doesn't even hardly pick up a sweat unless I want it to happen and that sort of thing. And I feel better. My mind is better. I'm more focused and that sort of thing. So, and we forget to do that when we're in the middle of, our studies and trying to be so academic about everything. It's one thing to really want to know and be curious about something, but on the same token, if we don't take care of these, we can't take care of these. Okay? All right. Well, as a general rule, I usually go a little over on these things. I wish you well. God bless. I'll be praying for you. And if you need anything, my office line is open. I've had a lot of students try to get a hold of me on my cell phone, but I don't answer that thing. And I hope you don't too much either. At least give yourself during certain parts of the day, just don't pay any attention to that thing. Because when we focus on one thing too much other than our God himself, things don't work out that well for us. Okay? Take care.